Good day, everyone. First, I would like to apologize for being late. These things happen to the best of us. Um, Without further ado, we'll just start. My name is Lulamile Mohapi. I'm a founder and director of a company called Phila Interactive. We're making our first video game, which is called Jozi Violentine, as you can see. A little bit about myself. I've got 15 years experience in the film industry. I've worked in commercials, I've worked in TV, I've worked in motion picture films. And in the past 5 years, I've been in the space of technology development, receiving business incubation support from the Innovation Hub, McKinsey, and other tech partners. Presently, with partnership with a company called Kofifi Media Group, as well as Forefront Media Group, which has released a couple of Oscar-winning films. One of the films is called 911. I think it's out in cinemas. Yeah. So my talk today is going to be identity and national consciousness in video games. All right. Sorry that I'm going to be reading from a text, but it's fine. In South Africa, the month of September is known as Heritage Month. Therefore, it is quite befitting that Amaze Johannesburg 2017, as part of Fakugesi African Digital Innovations Conference, continues to blaze the trail for the future of creative innovation and technologies. In the previous Amaze festivals, particularly in 2015, in which we discussed Black cultures, Blackness, and games developed by Black content creators, it brought home the endless obligation to cultivate Black pride in the culture of game development, not only to re-inculcate, but also to remind us that cultural heritage is at the center of creative innovation. The slide that you're seeing now is a mock poster of the video game that I'm developing. In 2015, we also postulated a lot of ideas on what types of games we should be creating. Should they be educational, socially uplifting, moralizing, or should video games give us the fulfillment of escapism, fantasy, meaningless fun, and more? Those discussions and engagements were fair, honest, and inspiring, and I am happy to be proud to be part of them in this year, 2017. So, Jozi Violentine is my first narrative video game. It's an existential premise on morality, redemption, and love, as well as the influence of foreign mafia syndicates in South Africa's underworld. It's a third-person action shooter with a fascinating storyline. I'm just going to show you the prototype that we're working on now. Here we go now. Where is Ben? Sorry, dude. It's fine. Can we show it at the end if that's okay with you guys? Is it okay? Thanks. You guys are awesome. All right. Now, the questions you'll be asking yourself, why make a video game like that? It's because when I told gamers that I'm making a third-person shooter game, they always ask me, is it like GTA? Or they would say, finally, someone in South Africa is making such an interesting game, etc. Some of them are here in the audience. But according to my experience and research, it is exactly what my audience wants. Well, at least it's a game that I would enjoy playing. But again, back to the question, why make a video game like that? Because I feel the immersive experience from the game should sufficiently, without trying to be preachy-teachy, make the player think about his or her view on national consciousness in relation to the subject matter. The player must ask himself, is the current or prevailing societal view on crime in line with my unconscious or subconscious reality? Or I have done some pretty bad things before, but are my sins better or less dreadful than those of these characters? So part of the main idea behind the game is to challenge the national consciousness or popularized societal ideas on morality. Again, the question will still remain, why make a video game like that, especially with such rampant crime in our society? My answer to that is simple. In South Africa, just like in many developing countries, the issue of organized crime is all about access to as well as controlling resources. But I'll leave that for the Q&A section. I do believe that from being true to our identity and being honest in our themes, we can offer great interactive storytelling experiences for our audiences through these mediums, from gaming to VR. And this is the future of content franchises. This is the future of storytelling in South Africa as I see it. As a self-taught game developer with extensive television and cinema experience, it makes natural sense to be among the pioneers of narrative-based game design in South Africa. 11 years ago, around 2006, at Phila Festival in Cape Town, I noticed that there's a strong desire to franchise film content into gaming. But the problem or the discord lay upon a lack of understanding of the gamer audience. So also over the years, especially in television, I've noticed that many storytellers derive their creative inspiration from Western prescribed ethnographic or anthropological imagery. That is why we find some content creators scrambling for identities and voices in the very same iconography that renders their own cultural heritage as barbaric. Let's see. Botched circumcisions, witchcraft, superstitions, peasantry, poverty, ancestor worshipping, or worse. That I do not find aspirational at all. In fact, the whole concept of exotifying black cultures for voyeuristic curiosities or perpetuation of cultural imperialism, I find it inartistic. Do not get me wrong, I do believe in visual spectacle, but however, it should be something that is not undermining other people's cultures. Let me make an example. The popular story about Nongause, it's a story about a Xhosa woman who during the 1800s made a daring prophecy that led to Xhosa tribes killing their cattle in mass in anticipation of the coming wealth that would be bestowed upon them when they convert to Christianity. But who knows if that information is factually correct? What if she was some revolutionary young woman who foresaw the devastating aftermath of colonization? Let's see. I'm not getting the right slide here. Yep, so we go. Just like the woman who led the defiance campaigns in 1952, what if she was the early version of Zodwa Wabantu? Zodwa Wabantu is the lady on the right, on the slide. She's kind of popular in social media circles, or if you're into those kind of things. But she's more of a liberated woman, sexually and otherwise. Okay, so what does this have to do with gaming or video game development? As game developers or interactive storytellers, we are responsible for creating or recreating the immersive experiences which form unending imagery unto our audiences. Whether you're a fan of franchises such as Assassin's Creed, Tomb Raider, GTA, or others, the iconography itself plays a role in the cognitive processes that form your worldview as an audience. So with JV's storyline, the city itself is a character. It plays around the idea of Joburg being the city of dreams, a city of splendor and wealth, and paradoxically, a city of sin. That is a consciousness almost everyone is aware of. Another leitmotif in Jozi Violentine is that of gangsterism. As a writer and director, I've opted to treat my characters in the best encouraging manner. The characters in the game are flawed people with good intentions, where violence and treachery comes as an existential conflict to who they truly are. Now that is a mammoth task for game design, let alone aesthetics, level designs, mission designs, animation, texturing engines, coding, etc. Through this journey of developing this video game, I have learned that the more resistance and difficulties you face, the more you are heading towards the right direction. in creative choices, as well as in business development. I am grateful to say that in my research, I did discover alternative voices in narrative games, from games such as Mafia 3, 1979 Revolution, and then locally, I found Kim's game. Kim was one of the speakers earlier, Kim Adamina. And then ANC Apocalypse. Let me show you ANC Apocalypse, which is one of the games I showed earlier on. With these two video games, it was clear that the attempt is satire at the political status quo. I could only marvel at the idea of satirizing contentious issues such as state capture, or a game aimed at commenting on the fees must fall debacle. I've always thought that is the kind of satire found in the artworks of Ayanda Mapulu, Zapiro, or Brett Bailey. But narrative design requires that we dig deeper in the meaning of signs, symbols, and signifiers. It is an exercise in identity or consciousness formation. Just as some developers have studied recently, I see the future of games in South Africa, relying partly in user-generated media content, just like we see in Facebook memes, Black Twitter, and other sources. I see mainstream media having a peripheral role because people will rely less on it as to their daily experiences. In conclusion, I'm happy to say that in this conference, I'm also proud of myself to be playing part in engaging such institutions. Wait, I've skipped something. What are other issues of national consciousness that can contribute to countrywide dialogue and can find proper expression through the medium of video games? Should we encourage such developments, or should we censor those voices? I cannot confess to have an answer to that, but what I can guarantee is that we are moving towards an era where a lot of institutions, both private and public, will invest in game development, not just tournaments from games that are developed outside of South Africa. I'm happy to say in this conference that I'm proud of myself to be playing a part in engaging such institutions. The future looks very bright for indie development studios and startups from an investment perspective, but at first we need to work together in terms of identity formation. I thank you. One final word, Jada, I wanted to say to you guys. I'm working on narrative-based game design. Just before I show you the clip of the game, we are now in the process of establishing a national fund that will cater for video game developers who are doing storyline-based video games and interactive storytelling. It's still work in progress, but we are in talks with all the relevant people, the